today. This is our last interview that we're having, and we have a very special guest that's joining us today, which you all might know, might not know. He has a mixtape that's going to be dropping soon, a Christmas album. But today we're going to be interviewing Mr. Jonathan Daniels. He is the youth minister of Shine Bible Fellowship Church. And so we are just going to kind of dive in, asking some great questions. If there's any questions that you guys want to ask him, please make sure that you write in the chat on YouTube, and we'll make sure that those questions get answered. So, Jonathan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, doing really good. Yeah, it's been a good weekend.
How's the weather's down there?
Oh yeah, you're in San Antonio. It is raining. We're supposed to go get a tree. It's the first live tree we've ever gotten. I've ever gotten in my life, actually. So I think we're still gonna go and get it, but it's all right. It's like 60 something degrees, so not too bad. How's it up in San Antonio?
So I'm sorry about the rain. We passed it to you guys. It was raining all day yesterday. I tried to go like Christmas shopping, knock out some gifts, went to one store. So sorry about that. Awesome. And how was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. With COVID, it was just us. So my mom, Erica, my wife, and Jay. I always fry a turkey. So yeah, so that's that. I can't do anything else about Thanksgiving.
I was like, okay, so you're cooking. Okay.
Don't put me in a category of like, oh, you're like the person that can just do a whole Thanksgiving meal. No, Erica's dad taught me to fry turkey, so I did that this year.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is when everything is done with COVID, that you're gonna fry us a turkey for the reunion gathering. Okay, got it. I'll make the invitations. Awesome.
It's funny. I actually fried a couple turkeys for Duran this year. Pastor Duran. Yeah. So
I've never had a fried turkey before.
Oh, we gotta change that. Yeah. All the stuff is that we gotta have like a Friendsgiving, right?
Friendsgiving. There you go. I'm down. Okay, awesome. All righty. So I wanted to ask you a question. I know that we've been talking a little bit and everything. So give us kind of like a background of who Jonathan is. Like, where were you born? I guess you could, from Houston, I know that, but what high school did you go to? How was that dynamics growing up?
Yeah. So you want to get deeper, just the general stuff now?
Let's start surface.
Surface stuff. Okay. So I was born and raised here in Houston, Texas. My parents grew up actually in Prairie View, the town where Prairie View A&M is. So they met there. We're married, and then I grew up in Houston, Texas, mostly in the Cypress area. I mean, we kind of grew. I was born near it's Inwood Forest, which is kind of near Acres Home. But I was only there for like 6 months, maybe. I don't even remember. And then moved over to the Cypress area, and been there ever since. So I went to Harry Grove Elementary School, and then Truett Middle School, which I know a lot of our youth go there, and then Cypress Ridge High School is where. And so then I've kind of stayed in the area. So I got a job, went to school at Prairie View A&M University and got a mechanical engineering degree, and got out and got a job here in Houston. And then now we kind of settled in Cypress. I'm kind of a little bit away, a little bit further north than northwest than where I grew up. But yeah, so that's kind of been here for my whole life, actually.
So you've never moved outside the city, pretty much?
No, I lived in New Orleans for like 3 months for an internship, and then but other than that, I've always been in Houston. Always lived kind of in different parts of the city, but always in Houston.
Mm-hmm. And so, what was your family like growing up? Were your parents still married?
Yeah. So when I was 6, my parents divorced. So they. Yeah, so right around that time, I still remember we watched Jurassic Park, and then like I think that was like they're like dropped a bomb on us that they're getting a divorce, and then they're like, oh, would you watch Jurassic Park? I think it was like trying to so it's funny looking back on it, but it wasn't funny. But so yeah, so my parents were divorced when I was around 6 years old. My dad still lived in the Houston area. But we did the whole where I would go over there every other weekend, and yeah, or like for summers I'd be there for a month or 2 months at a time, that kind of thing, or over spring break. So we did that all the way up until I was in high school. So yeah, I'll say this, still pretty good relationship with my dad. You know, I wish he was at home, but it wasn't like he was still pretty involved. They they made, you know, parenting wise, they really did a good job of trying to co-parent during that whole thing. So yeah, it's probably a story of itself that how much forgiveness that they've been able to kind of go through. So
Yeah, I definitely understand. I know with me, like my parents divorced when I was 2, so I don't remember anything. Probably still sucking on a pacifier. Don't remember, but yeah, I know that that definitely creates a different dynamic for like kids that grow up in single parent homes or going back and forth to one home to another. So, but let's see. So growing up, do you have brothers and sisters?
yes. So I grew up. So I have a brother and a sister. So it's actually it's a interesting story. So biological, I have a brother and a sister, half sister. So my dad had was married before my mom, and then had my sister. So she's about 10 years older, but she didn't grow up with us. So she was all in. She lived with her mom for most of the time, and so my brother and I we were about 3 years apart. So we grew up together for a majority of our lives together. So yeah, it's like my best friend. So yeah, he is in Dallas right now. For a period of my life, I had um, stepbrothers and sisters. I still kind of consider them brothers and sisters, even though we're not much in contact today. But I had a stepbrother and two stepsisters for a little bit of time. So yeah, yeah. There was a so after my dad got married once again, and then he's now divorced. So that whole family for kind of majority of my high school, kind of junior high, high school, actually elementary, junior high, and high school. That was kind of the family dynamic.
Did y'all go to the same elementary school and middle school?
My brother and I.
Your
Oh,
step.
oh no, yeah. So they lived so where my dad. So they were not in Cyprus. So we
Okay.
it was kind of North Houston
Got you.
area. They kind of moved around, but kind of more in the northern northwest Houston area.
Now, Jonathan, are you the baby or are you the middle?
I'm the baby. I've always been the
Okay.
baby, which is crazy. Like even when every family dynamic, I've been the baby. So which it has its great advantages, but advantages from a like there's stuff I could do that my brother couldn't do just simply because he was the oldest. So like I felt like my mom was trying to just figure it out with my.
Hmm.
She did a great job, but she would be more relaxed with me because she's like, it's not that big of a deal. What I thought was a
Hmm.
big deal. But the bad side of it, I always was picked on. Like always was picked on.
It made you stronger. It's okay.
It's true. Looking back, but I remember, especially being over my dad, it was like six of us, six like kids in the house. And I always would like be the one like with the toilets, or I always would be the one that, that you can't do that because you're too young. So I just remember always growing up being the runt, kind of getting thrown around or beat up, that kind of stuff for sure.
And look at you now, got a mechanical engineering degree, doing great things. You're good.
You're saying that the pain molded me. It wasn't that bad.
You persevered. Like it's awesome.
That's true.
Okay. So since we're here with the youth ministry, we're on this call. When did you discover that you had a calling on your life? Because you are the youth minister. I know you're in grad school right now, obtaining your master's degree. So when did you discover that, like, okay, I know God is calling me to be something in ministry? Like, how did you know?
So it's interesting. When I was a kid, when I was young, and I'm not gonna say like it wasn't like dramatic, like where it's like I knew from the very beginning. I don't have that story. But when I was a kid, whenever I would be in church and I would hear our pastor preach, I would always think like, "Oh, I wish he would have tweaked it this way or something." I would always think like that. I don't know why. I'm not saying I don't know why I would think like I always say, "Oh, he could have like done something different there," or something like
Mhm.
that. Or I would be super interested in the things he would talk about, how he broke it down. Okay, fast forward. So then, right after college, I guess in college, I just felt this need to just help people, like especially youth, like younger, high school. So we would do, when I was in college, I was over this organization. So it's National Society of Black Engineers at Prairie View. So and we would always go like into high schools and help tutor. And sometimes I would speak to the high school students there about, but not about God. It was about like, you know, making sure you got good grades and making sure you did the right thing, even overcoming obstacles to do what you need to do. So I would do that. I was terrible at it when I first started. I mean, I look back
Just need to
on,
get used to it. I
yeah,
understand.
yeah, I was terrible. I mean, I thought it was okay, but now looking back, I wish I could redo a redo. But I just felt like I needed to do that. And then when we got out of college, so Eric and I met in school, and my wife, and we actually got engaged in school. So when we got out of school, we joined a church,
Mhm.
Church Without Walls, and then we got involved with the youth ministry. Same idea. I felt like I needed to be involved with the youth. I never had that. There's only a few times where I felt that. Like I just felt something where I needed just to do that. And so I got involved with youth ministry there. I started out as a greeter. I was like not trying to do, I was busy at work, wasn't trying to do that much. And then progressively just started to do more.
Mhm.
Like, so then I started got like a small group where it was like sixth grade boys. Then I went to, they used to do preaching. So, you know, it's a fairly large church. So they used to have like their own service. And so I kind of did the speaking thing before. So I asked, hey, could I do it? And surprisingly, they just let me do it. Like, I don't know why they just let me on the stage. And so
They
I
felt
started
you're
doing it.
qualified.
Yeah, he's like, okay, yeah, you seem like I can say, I think he just didn't knew I wasn't gonna say anything crazy. Like,
Mhm.
like you're not gonna go up there and don't embarrass us.
Or
No,
can we turn off his mic if it, yeah.
yeah, yeah, the mic. Hey, the mic isn't working. You know, so they had the ability to turn the mic off. No, so so when I decided to do that, I, I don't know. I just felt like I love doing it. Like
Mhm.
I, I always tell people, like some things I do because there's like a job where if they stop paying me, I would never do this job anymore. But I said I would do this for free. I just loved doing it. And so then I started doing it over and over and over again. And they kept asking me to keep doing it. And at some point I said, am I ever gonna stop doing this?
Mhm.
And then when I answered that question, I said, no, I don't think I'm ever gonna not be doing this in some capacity. It may not be with youth, but it's gonna be in some capacity. So that was kind of the calling. Like, um, so then it was a faith thing. Like, do I go to seminary and get educated? So then I felt like if I'm always gonna do this, then like I feel like this is something I'm gifted to do, then go for it. So that's why I ended up at seminary. And that's how I ended up at Shine, because I wasn't even part of Shine before all that. And then God kind of, led me to Shine, which is a whole nother story, but kind of led me to Shine just so kind of confirming that what I was doing was the right thing to do, if that makes sense.
So when did you become saved? And then I
Oh,
guess, can you explain what saved is? Because I know previously we had some questions as like, okay, what does it mean to actually be saved?
yeah. Great question. Okay, it's a great question. So I'll start with what does it mean to be saved?
Mhm.
So, and I didn't get this when I was in, especially elementary school. I didn't
Mhm.
really understand what it meant. So being saved um, is about trust. Is about trust. Um, or confidence is probably a better word. So it's placing your confidence that Jesus Christ has saved you through his death, burial, and resurrection. That's probably the simple version. By what that means is, okay, sin, all of us sinning costs something. And so the Bible says it's really is death, right? So the cost of it is death. And because sin costs something, someone has to pay that cost. And so Jesus died, buried, resurrected. That means that he paid that cost. So if the wages of sin, the cost of sin is death, Jesus paid the price. And all I need to do is say, I have confidence that that is true. Not perfect confidence. It's like sitting on a chair. Like the chair may bust out from under me, but I have confidence enough to sit on a chair because I know it's going to hold me up. So that's what being saved means. Being saved means that I have confidence that what Jesus has done saves me from death. And death means separation from God.
Mhm.
So that when I die physically, I will be with him forever. That makes sense. Hopefully that was
Yeah, yeah, everlasting life. Uh-huh.
everlasting life, right? I'm going to heaven, right? Not because I'm great, but because God has done this great thing for me. Okay.
Mhm.
So my interesting thing is I don't really remember a moment. Like, it's not like it just came boom and now I'm saved, because my mom was just so integral. Like, she used to be like, she used to tell that stuff to us when we were super young, you know. So my mom's story, so I'll go into that a little bit. So she was paralyzed when I was 6 months old, like from waist down. So she woke up one morning and she couldn't feel her legs. I mean, it's a lot more story to that, but that's basically it. She couldn't feel her legs. She was in extreme pain. And so she was paralyzed when I was 6 months old. So remember, so I have a brother that's 3 years older than me. She had a 3-year-old at home and a 6-month-old at home. Uh, and yeah, she can't walk. So that tragedy really led her to like really, really understand God. At first, for healing, like, God, I need you to fix this, right? But then what it ended up being is she ended up discovering what God really had done for her, right? And so she knew what the gospel meant. She knew what it meant to be saved. And so that's how she was saved. So that was when I was 6 months old, remember? So from that point on, because she has gone so deep in what it meant to be saved, like, it was everywhere. Like, I don't remember a time when I didn't know who God was. Now, I say that to say, some people have that story, and that doesn't mean so there was definitely a time when I was more serious about what I already knew.
Mhm.
So, so for me, I felt like I can't give you a date. Like, I was baptized when I was 10. That's probably a good, that's when I kind of tell people, like, I was about 10 years old when I had to, in our church, we used to have confirmation classes where you have to go and get confirmed. And so you would learn about the Christian faith, and then you would have to make that statement. So I was about 10 when that happened. So that's when I say it was, but I kind of already knew most of that stuff. Like, it wasn't
Mhm.
like, oh, this is new information for me, but let's say 10. But I really didn't get like super serious until college. Um, be- because I think prior to that, I always had like a piece of me that I didn't like really give up to God. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was always pretty like a good kid. I
Yeah.
like make pretty good grades, or I didn't really get into a lot of trouble. I kind of did little stuff, but not like, I wasn't stealing cars, nothing like that,
Mhm.
But like, there was still like sin that I just was like, God, I'm just gonna, like, this is
Hold
like,
on to
I'm
this.
good. Like 90% I'm doing good. I'm just gonna keep this 10. Like, you just not touch this 10.
Mhm.
And for me, it was like girls. That was like my thing. Like, with girls, it was like, I'm just gonna keep the girl thing. And everything else, like, I'm not gonna really cuss. I'm not really gonna fight people unless they like kind of fight me, you know? um, so yeah, so I think, but then in college, I kind of came to realization I need to just surrender all of that. Like, I needed to um, give all of it over, and not be wishy-washy in that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I know like we've been talking, and so a lot our stories are kind of very similar. So the same thing with me. I think in I was baptized at an early age. I think it was 12 or 13, but I didn't really understand it. There was no confirmation classes with us. I was like, oh, water, okay, don't get my hair wet. And I remember the moment where I understood. So like how you explain with being saved, like surrendering, understanding that, yes, I believe in God. I believe that he sent his son to save us from our sins so that we can have access to him. But then it's also the second part, which is like the walk, the
Mhm.
salvation part. And so I think that's where some kids like that are watching maybe struggling with that. It's like, okay, I know I'm saved, but then I keep messing up. Okay, so what advice would you give to kids or whoever's watching about kind of like your walk, your salvation? You kind of talked about it, like I knew, but then how hard was that process, and what advice could you give to the teens that are watching?
Man, I used to have so much shame about, like, why am I still struggling? Like, I used to, whether it was like, I just kept going back, even when I was telling you, when I like surrendered it, when I stopped. I was kind of really, it was kind of high school, college, really right between that senior and freshman year of college. And so I gave it over. Now, when I say that, I hope people didn't think, oh, you were done with it. Like it was out of your life. No, 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 no. It was like I gave it over, and I think it just kept coming back. Like I was like throwing the ball over the fence, and it was like, no, no, I don't want it anymore. Like, quit coming back. You know?
Volleyball, I got you.
And to be clear, it's temptation, right? That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking temptation with girls, temptation with pornography, temptation with all those things that I just kept throwing over, thinking that it was just gonna go away because, okay, God, I gave it to you, and it was like all the way, every time. So what I had to do it is, I think, two things. It took me a long time to realize that what grace really means. Like, and you said it, it's grace covers all of those things.
Mhm.
And it is about the journey. Some people's stories are, yeah, miraculously they don't have this temptation anymore. And that's and God blesses us in that way. It's some people that way, but that is not the majority of people's story. Like grace is with you through the journey, right?
Mhm.
That's what that means. It's not like grace is there to just take things away. It's as I'm walking and tempted and fall into temptation, grace covers it, right? And then I try to get out, and and then try to keep on that journey to get back to where I need to be. And then one day you'll realize, okay, where I am now is not where I once was. Like you hear that all the time, like, well, well, you back where I used to be. All the old church folks say it all the time, but it's so true. Like you don't see it because it's like watching my son grow, right? I don't
Mhm.
see it every day. Like I don't see it. I don't see him getting taller and bigger and can speak better. I don't see that. But when someone sees him and then 6 months later they see him, they're like, "What the heck happened to you? Like
Mhm.
you're huge and you could talk so well." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even see it." The same thing with us. Like for me, I couldn't see it. I was like, "I'm not even growing. Like this is kind of not what I expected." But when I look back, I'm like, "Man, I'm not where I used to be." And that's it's just a part of the journey. And that's what I would say. My advice would say, um, don't give up. Don't give up on trying to, if it's sin or if it's some temptation or if it's some guilt with that you're trying to get over. It is a journey. God is using that so that you can become dependent on Him.
Mhm.
Um, and don't give up and say, I'm just going to go back. That's what a lot of people do. I'm just going to forget it. I'm just going to do it because I'm tired of trying. It's just a part of the journey.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so since you kind of opened up about like your temptations and kind of like the struggle that you've had kind of high school and college, when did you, I guess I'm trying to add Erica in here, like how
Yeah.
did she come into the mix?
Oh
And
yeah, yeah. Okay, so she was like right there when I was getting serious about God. She was like right, like okay. So I met her. Um, it was a bright sunny day, and the sun beamed down on this young lady.
I hope she's watching. Trying to get points,
And I
Erica,
just
trying to get
knew
points.
from that moment, like and a bird fluttered in and landed on her shoulder. And the butterflies. No, I'm just kidding. So we went to this engineering summer program at Prairie View,
Mhm.
called STEM. STEM is the general term, but it was called STEM. And she was in that summer program. And interestingly enough, I think it's similar to your story. I just like, well, I was kind of in a right in that bad temptation, and I was just right kind of in it, but I was guilty and trying to get out of it. I was like right in that bad spot. So I met her, and we were just friends. We kind of just connected.
Mhm.
So so going to PV. So I grew up in Cyfair. I went in Cypress schools on my so I had that little stint in kind of Acres Home area, but I had no cultural piece of that. So I was all in Cyfair. So I was like culturally, it wasn't a lot of African Americans around me when
Mhm.
I was like, especially I was usually the only one in my class.
Mhm.
So I had a culture shock when I went to PV. I was like, wow, these like it's a lot of black people here. Like, not saying like I've been around this before, but it was just all the time. Like I had to get used to that, honestly.
Mhm.
And so Erica had a similar culture. She was military, but she had a similar cultural background. And so it wasn't just that, like she, child just drawn to each other. So we were just good friends. And then I guess right in that moment, I was kind of just trying to figure out God in my life and how to give him over that thing. And I had a bad breakup as well, where and we were just friends. And at some point in time, I was just like thinking, we're having a conversation. I remember this like it was yesterday. We're having a conversation, and she was just trying to tell me about, how I should date other girls, and like, cause I was chilling. Like I was like, I'm just trying to focus on guys. She's like, I should just date other girls, and there's other girls out there. You should just get yourself out there. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should date. Like, who could I date? And I was like, maybe you. I didn't say that to her. It was in my head. Maybe you. Um, so that's kind of the start, honestly. Like it was a few months after that, kind of let, just get healed up from that kind of thing. And then we started dating freshman year, got engaged our senior year in college, and then we're married the year after college.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was,
So
yeah.
I was gonna say
Having a girl get engaged to a girl in college, it was like, who is this dude doing this?
you have like the dream life right there. That was my time frame. My time frame did not work out that way.
Oh, really?
But, no.
Most were like not trying to, they're like, I'm not trying to get any type of commitment at all. Like they thought I was insane for engaging in college for sure. But
so the big thing I got out of that was, of course, like for the teens that are watching, is you were friends first.
yeah.
You're friends first. Yeah. So I think that's an important aspect, like just getting to know the person that you potentially want to date and figuring out who they are as a person. But then also you mentioned that like you were trying to come into yourself and understand what your relationship like was with God as well. So
and it was very good for us. So let me back up and say this. So the relationship I was in, we were good people. It was like two good people, right? She was, very sweet girl. But we weren't good for each other, if that makes sense. And some people I think sometimes think like, oh, we're just two good people, so we should work out together. And I think that because we weren't both giving up fully ourselves, like we were like, going to church and doing all these good things, but we weren't fully giving ourselves over to Christ, right? We both had like percentages of ourselves we were holding in. Does that make sense?
mm-hmm.
And just with that little bit that we were holding on, it like was toxic for us. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
So I say that to say, if you may find yourself in a position like I was, and like, oh, we're, like she's good, I'm good, and yeah, they got that little. I'm not talking about perfect people. I'm talking about someone surrendered. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
surrendered over to Christ, and so that wasn't good for us. It was very toxic at the end.
Mhm.
Now with Erica, she was there. Like she was like surrendered. Now not perfect, like Erica used to curse like all the time. She would be cursing people out, like not good.
I don't see
You
it.
can't
I
believe
don't
it.
see it.
Man, I'm gonna tell y'all, look, man.
I was like, not Erica. No.
Man, let me tell y'all. But not so my point is not perfect. That's not what I'm trying to say. But she was all about what God wanted for her. Like we were on that same wavelength of we're trying to get better. We're trying to be better for Christ. And so that was key for us to be kind of have a fruitful relationship, because we could still work past temptations, work past some things. And even if we did things that weren't, curse somebody out, it was like, hey, let's we know we're not supposed to do that. Let's try to come back from that. Does that make sense? Instead of like, yeah, you should just
what you should have done
lay
is
into
not.
it, same idea for me too, where it was like my own temptations. She was like, okay, let's get back from that. Let's try to stop that. So it was helpful. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And of course, like you touch base on the surrendering part. Now, for you, especially since we're talking to the teens with that middle school, high school, even partially college, when you're in that state of like surrendering everything over to God, you understand that, I mean, of course, you have to kind of separate yourself from people and certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the big thing was like surrendering everything. And I started looking at my friendships and they just started falling apart left and right. So for you, when you're going through the process of like salvation, you're surrendering things to God, what was the hardest thing within that? I guess your sermons.
Oh man. So I think for me, okay, when I got to PV, relationships it was so key to make sure I surrounded myself with the right people. And I say this because I was kind of trying to get on that right track, if that makes sense. I was kind of making sure, like I can't even explain that God just started to put godly people in my life. Like it wasn't even like I was trying to find. I was just trying to stay away from something that I knew I shouldn't get into, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like, I mean, like college. I mean, and like temptations in everywhere. Like temptation is everywhere. People girls hitting you up on the phone. You're like all on social media, and you're like, you're just trying to like.
Close the DMs, close
Yeah,
them.
it could be a text away, and I can be somewhere I shouldn't be. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it's all over the place. So I had to just say, okay, stop. It's like I just need to, ignore, block, ignore.
Mhm.
Even if again, like they're not bad people, just not good for me.
Exactly.
And it's like these people that I needed just start coming in. I wasn't even like searching for like a good friend. Like so, I get one was man, these two brothers. I had guy named Eric Brown. He actually goes well. He knows Pastor Duran. Cullen Cooper. I met them. I was tutoring in the class, and I met them. Very good friends to this day. That they weren't even looking for. Another guy, Jaron Brewer. You know Jaron from church. You met
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
yeah. So I knew Jaron Asha in college, but Jaron Brewer, another added to the squad, right? Um, had godly relationships, kind of somewhat from high school, but I mean, especially those three guys right there, outside of my family,
Mhm.
were just key just to have around me because we're all, I mean, all dealing with our own temptations, but all trying to get back to it, and we all became roommates, and it was just really good for us. Like and Erica was another one. Like she was like, if I'm Dwayne Wade, she's yeah, that's probably right. So who's a, if I was uh you know I can't think of a good duo right now, peanut butter and jelly or something like that, but like it was like
Resort to food. Yeah.
yeah, like but like God placed these good people around me um that kind of help keep me on that path.
Mhm.
Because again, it wasn't perfect. Like, man, like before I met Eric, it wasn't perfect. I was trying, it wasn't like I was there. But it was just people really that God put in my life. I didn't even ask for them,
Mhm.
honestly. So it was
Yeah.
just such a blessing, honestly, to see that.
I will say that like God has similar to you, my story, like God has seriously placed some amazing people in my life. I know like what I was saying is that when I started surrendering everything over to God, like friendships just started falling. I'm like, I can't be around them because that's just temptation. I can't go there. You never want to go with this anywhere. I'm sorry, you don't understand. I just can't.
Yeah.
But then there is like two core people in my group that we just literally uplift each other. They know when something's wrong with me. They call me out. I think that's important too.
Oh
Having
man,
friends that calling you out, yep, you're right, I shouldn't. Okay.
man,
Okay.
let me and they're weird too. Like when you first meet them, they're weird. Like I remember Eric. He's not gonna mind me sharing this because he's like my best friend, one of my best friends to this day. But he used to carry his Bible around everywhere he went, literally everywhere he went. Like I was like, bro, like it's okay. Like you don't gotta carry it everywhere. Like he would take it everywhere I could still see him with this carrying his Bible. He would and then bust it out and read it. He was just so far further in his relationship with Christ than me. He was like all in. And he would be going, he would carry his Bible around. He would listen to like Christian music. I was like, this is the wackest music. I was like, I'm never listening to this. Like Lecrae. Like this is when Lecrae wasn't as it like Lecrae now. Lecrae was like bootleg CD Lecrae. Like you didn't know about
CDs. For those of you who
it.
don't know what CDs are,
Yeah,
they're
like
these little
it was.
discs.
It wasn't even. It was like because Lecrae used to say in his albums. The only reason I noticed is because of Eric was like, "Hey, I don't mind if you illegally download this and make a CD and distribute it because I just want to get the word out." And
Oh
so
wow.
you have all these bootleg CDs, or like they used to mix it, so they used to download them off. And all this is super old, but like, off of the internet,
Mhm.
and then make these CDs. And he used to give me all these CDs. I didn't listen to one of them. And it's so crazy because like fast forward my life 5 years, 6 years later, I was only listening to that. Like
Mhm.
it's just so interesting that God put somebody in my life who was like, I'm like, this dude is weird. And now I ended up becoming that dude in some ways. Yeah. Eric is still a little weird. I'm just kidding. Eric ever watches that. I'm just playing. But I say that because it was different than, and I didn't have like a bad friends. I didn't say that either.
Mhm.
It was just I had never been around people that like they were filled with like they were consumed with trying to do what God wanted them to do. I'd never been around people like that.
Mhm.
I always been around people that were like, yeah, I believe, but I got my things I do. Like that was comfortable for me. So
Yeah. On the fence, kind of, sort of.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I got my things over here that I like to do, and God can have the rest. So it was so good for me to see that and be challenged by it and see how their life were led and then influence my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess also kind of reverting back to like your childhood, you did mention your mom, and I'm assuming that she played a very essential role in understanding the gospel, understanding what it means to be saved. So who else kind of contribute to that, you understanding the gospel?
Um, my grandmother, my mom's mom. So interestingly, my mom grew up around it, but she didn't really get it until she was paralyzed. So, but that doesn't mean she actually grew up in a Christian household. And so my grandmother, not necessarily in her words, but her actions were very gospel centered. Um,
Mhm.
she so she was a teacher, and um, she's always been. So she had my mom when she was 40. My mom had me when she was 30. She was like 70 when I was born.
Okay.
But so when you think of a 70-year-old, you're thinking, oh, kind of. But she was not that way at all. Like she was uh, fully committed to the calling God had on her life. And so she was a teacher, and so she retired from teaching, I think at 70 something.
Okay.
And then when my brother and I went to school, she volunteered at like our elementary school for probably like 5, maybe 7 years,
Mhm.
even after we had left the elementary school, because she was just called to be a teacher and to kind of show Christ to all of her students and be there for them. Like she used to be all about it. Like every part of her was about her calling. Where people, this is insane. She was a first grade teacher, by the way. People still remember what she had done in first grade for them. Now her students are like 60. You know what I mean? Like they're like 60, 70 to this day. I'm talking, and they're still talking about their first grade teacher and how and she's impacted them. And what that told me is that God had made a call in her life, and she went all in for it. Like she didn't play around with it. She would have done it for free. She did do it for free.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of gospel centered and not, but I think about how she just represented sacrifice. That it wasn't about her, it was about all these other people that are around her, her serving. It didn't matter that she was older or she may be dealing with pain. She always served people and did it to utmost, to the utmost, because that's what she was called to do. And that just hit me so much that she would do that, to the point where I try to model myself in some ways after
Mhm.
that, where it's like, how can I just not think of myself, not to where I'm not to point of exhaustion, but how can I just give up myself to this one calling and be in on it, so that I can have that impact. I'm not saying like just where people think, man, that he was doing what he was called to do. Yes, I don't know. So she was very influential for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Do we have any questions in the chat? I know I can't see
I
it.
see a good morning, but I will prompt. I will prompt.
Yes, guys, please, if y'all have any questions, please write them at the bottom of the YouTube chat so we can go ahead and get those questions to Jonathan.
And don't hold back. Like if you're thinking it, I want to hear it. So don't hold
This
back.
is your chance.
Yeah, yeah. You'd be like, yeah, even if it's silly, if you're like, what do you like to do or something like that, I don't care either way.
Like I said, he is dropping a mixtape for Christmas. So
And
just
look,
remember,
I try, I
it's going to
tried.
be available through CD.
So my nephew, oh, this is pre, no, this was a few months ago, but I saw my nephew, and he's 11. I hope I didn't quote that wrong. I think he's 11. Um, he's sixth grade. He's sixth grade, and
Okay.
he had a rap battle. It was the worst rap battle in the history of rap battles.
But you and your nephew had a rap
My
battle.
nephew, like we went back to back, and when I flow, it's slow. Like I have to let my brain like process it fast enough. It was the worst rap.
I am judging so hard right now. Okay. It's a facial
It was the
expression.
worst rap battle history rap. If someone recorded that, we would have streams because it was so bad.
What is it called? What is oh, Punt on the TV show Punt. I'm pretty sure nobody knows what that is who's watching. Please look it up, Ashton. Picture.
Yeah, look up Punk. That was a legit show.
Awesome. So, question for you. So, I know, like I said, you're in grad school and everything. So, what right now is going on in your life, and what dreams do you have for your future?
Yeah, so I'm in grad school, seminary. So I'm getting a degree in Christian education. I'm still working full time as an engineer, and and part time at the church as youth minister. So, um, you know, that's a. It's funny. I know that question was coming up, and but it's an interesting thing. I actually struggle with quite a bit. Because so I have like the engineering thing, right? That I do that takes a lot of my time, that I like to do, and I'm part of. But then I have like this calling on the other side where, ministry and, youth ministry and whatever, maybe helping people. And so I think um, I am just trying to figure out how to manage that well,
Mhm.
like how to do both things and yeah. So to be honest, I am in this phase right now where I'm just kind of looking to God to kind of guide my steps. It's almost like a day, month to month at a time, because things that you get a master's degree right now, it's busy, right? And so
Mhm.
it's like, things going on at work, things going on at church, things going on at school, family things going on. So I just feel like I'm just trying to do all things well. Like Erica calls me like a plate spinner. Y'all know what plate spinners?
Is
Yeah,
that that's
yeah, like they got like, oh, this is called a juggler. Like I got 7 balls in the air and I'm not trying to drop one. So uh, I think what I would love for the future is a ministry where I can help people at critical moments in their life. So I think youth is one of those. Youth and young adults is two of those.
Mhm.
Um, where or it could be like a marriage, or it could be and so like just being just a ministry that helps them through that portion. Not so spiritual, also could be financial. Just how do you navigate in this? The other thing, actually, I'm thinking about even more is racial reconciliation. That is a big one for me. Where I was before we were in this. Because especially my background, right? I kind of grew up
Mhm.
always on both sides, and so I really want to see us, specifically the church. I'm not just talking everywhere. I'm talking about in the church. We come together to where we represent heaven, right? Heaven's not going to be segregated, right? We're not going to get there. We're not going to have,
A VIP
hey,
section for each.
yeah, it's not happening, right? We're all going to praise God together. And so, what I want people to see, what my goal with it is that when people look at either this ministry or this church, they are like, how are they doing that?
Mhm.
How do they love each other so well, yet they are from totally different backgrounds? You got this person over here from the hood, and you got this other person over here, high class, white, and then are like just socioeconomic, but not just that. Like you got someone from India, and you got someone from Africa, and somebody from Cyprus, and somebody from Fifth Ward, and they're all coming together and they love each other and they
Yeah.
serve each other. And people are like, what is that? And that's what I want people to think, because they're saying, like, what is that? You can point to them to, well, all these people, the thing that these people have in common is Jesus, right? So that's kind of in my mind right now. Is I would love to be either a part of either merging churches together or helping Shine become that, just like that multicultural, multi-ethnic. So that's
Yeah.
kind of in my mind.
I will say that Shine's done a really good job when, the whole Black Lives Matter movement started and collaborating with the other church.
Yeah.
That was awesome because my church back home, San Antonio, we didn't really do anything like that. And that the church here is predominantly African American. So very similar to you, like when I went to church, that was my cultural awareness.
Yeah.
But then of course, I coming back to school and everything, Now, what I would say to you personally, like, thank you for like this support and everything that you're doing with the ministry. I've explained this to you before, coming from San Antonio, my church here, and coming to Shine, like you, Erica, Jerron, the greeters, everything, as soon as I walked through those doors, just felt like at peace. Like I knew I was supposed to do that. And then the work that you're doing with the youth ministry is like fantastic. I've never been around someone like you, a youth minister, who's actually educating the students who come, and then also kind of following up with them. You know, like you follow up with them, you hold them accountable. So I think that's something important that everyone here who's watching needs to, you know, like speak to Jonathan, make sure you reach out to him and all the adult leaders that are helping you guys too. So personally, I'd like to thank you, Jonathan, you and Erica, and little Jay too, because I mean, he's sacrificing his time with you, you know,
Yeah.
just to give time sometimes. But yeah, I think you're doing an amazing job. So
Thank
I
you.
cannot wait to see where God leads you. I cannot wait.
Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate that. No, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think we're getting ready to wrap up pretty soon.
Yeah. And then I'll
Okay.
see questions, but
Questions?
but it's okay if they don't have any. Yeah.
Well, last question that I have for you.
Okay.
I know COVID season and everything, and the last time that we were together on our Zoom call with the teens, there was a little game that we were playing, you know, and there was a comment that was made about some basketball game. So I just would like to remind you, I guess, about that we are going to do a basketball game.
Yeah.
So just put that on your radar.
We cannot wait. We cannot wait until all this goes away, because I think it just, it feels different when, we get in person. And you know, we didn't talk about that part of my story, but I was a basketball phenom, maybe not phenom, but I was at least I thought I was. But I was decent. at basketball. I know you played too, so we need to get a game going. And and on the court, I don't play. Like look, I don't play. Okay, so all this spiritual stuff, we can talk about the gospel.
Now you say you surrendered everything, so you can't hold on to that.
That's
you gotta
true.
let that
I
go.
think you're right. Touche.
Accountable. I have to return the favor.
Great part. Yes, you're true.
So I don't know if we're gonna do it like new school versus old school, or female versus male, whatever. Whoever on my team, we're gonna win. So it doesn't matter. I mean,
are you saying because you're assuming you're with?
No, I have confidence. Like I have confidence in the Lord. I have confidence that I will win.
Okay. Well, you misplaced your confidence. Okay, you misplaced your confidence. Okay, you should you should have a firmer foundation than.
I know. Okay, statistics shows, Mr. Engineer. No.
No, I'm just kidding. We definitely got to get that basketball game going for sure. I think a lot of people in our ministry play, so we gotta. We got to play to see. And then there will be no videotaping, because when I'm raining threes. I know
I'm going to pull a hamstring. You know?
And just in case we lose, not saying we will, but there's no documentation of that. If I win, by the way, I will never play again, because I'm always up. I'm like, oh.
One and done. Awesome. All righty, Jonathan. So is there anything else that you want to add before we conclude today?
No, I think, hopefully, from what we talked about, what I hope people get is, it is a journey, that, your walk with Christ isn't about, Jesus comes to my life and everything is fixed. Like the reason, there's a reason why he doesn't just bring everybody up to heaven, right? Boom, up to heaven. You have something to go through while you're here on earth. Something to learn right here on earth. And the only way for you to learn sometimes is to go through that process, right? You got to go through some struggles, go through some triumphs, go sometimes where you can really depend on God to really understand what he's all about, right? So try to embrace that process as much as you can. Again, process means it's not just fixed, right? It means day in, day out, every day making different decisions. You try to take as many steps forward. Sometimes you take a couple steps back. Just embrace that, and because God is working in you, whether you see it or not. God is working in you, and he's creating something in you that so when you finally have that day when you will meet Jesus, you're going to look back and say, look what you've done. You're going to look at God and say, look what you've done. I couldn't have done this by myself. So trust the process for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Jonathan. So again, if you guys have any questions, you can still write them in the little chat box and we'll be sure to get back with you guys very soon. But this concludes our interview with our youth minister from Shine. Thank you all for joining us.
See y'all later.